What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Thursday, April 24th. My name is Ewan, and we are waiting for the Miami Grand Prix to start its engines next week. So I figured I'd get one of the newest voices in F1 Fantasy on the scene here. Luke, top 200 finisher in the world last season in F1 Fantasy. How is it going, sir?
Awesome to be here, Ewan. Thanks for inviting me onto the channel today. It is going really good. The fantasy season has been thrilling. It's been entertaining so far. And as much as I'm thankful for a little race week break here, I am still itching to get back into watching some of our favorite drivers and teams out there on the track. So this is going to pass some time till we get to that point.
Yes, yes. I'm really glad you came on. But if people aren't familiar with you yet, Luke, which they should be, they will be by the end of the season because you are crushing it in the content game. Just let people know where they can find you, what's up, F1 history, experience, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so as you can see, I recently started a YouTube channel, which is you can find me at LF1 Fantasy Strategy. Also on X at Luke F1 FF1 Fantasy as well. So certainly out there trying to post on a weekly basis, trying to add a new spin, my own take on fantasy strategy, fantasy content, and yeah, so far it's been a wild ride to date.
Nice, nice. And then I see down there Williams, Lewis Hamilton. Those are kind of your soft spots in F1. Is that still a thing? You're still cheering for Lewis even if he's wearing red?
I am. I am. I mean, hands down, when I first got into the sport back into the early 90s, I was all about Williams. You wouldn't catch me cheering for anyone else but the British drivers. Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill, Jenson Button, obviously, of course, legendary Ayrton Senna. Many of those Sunday afternoons were ruined by Michael Schumacher and that dominant red Ferrari. Yeah, these days, naturally, just a big Lewis fan, and I'm sure we all remember that amazing Silverstone win last year. So I'm still hopeful that there are a few more Lewis wins there for us to witness. But what do you think, Ewan?
I hope so too. He is going to come up in today's episode, and poor hosting duty by me. But today's episode is early season winners and losers, everybody. So we're kind of stock up, stock down. So we're going to go through some drivers, some teams, some kind of theories in the game of what has gone on. So I wanted to bring Luke on and do that. But it looks like you've had some previous success in F1 Fantasy here. Luke, we see that on the screen. You want to talk us through your debut season in F1 Fantasy, how that went?
So it's actually quite a crazy story. I mean, 2024 was actually my first season playing the game. Now, I've had some fancy experience in the past with FPL and NFL fantasy, which I really love. Um, but getting into F1 fantasy was certainly a new space for me. And maybe it was a little bit of beginner's luck or just a lot of good research. But I managed to finish my first season with a global rank of 144, which was surreal. And then specifically because I live here in Canada, I got into the top 10 in Canada. So I'm fully aware that might end up being my personal best for a while. But this is why we play the game, and this is why I'm still here. I'm fully bought in. I'm fully locked in. And I definitely couldn't have done it without established creators like yourself in the F1 fantasy space. So your content really helped me wrap my head around chip strategy, constructor values, driver values, a lot of the subtle plays that can make or break a season. So you know what? Credit's due where it's due.
Well, I appreciate that. I can only dream of a rank of 144, especially this season. Before we get into today's episode, which is going to be early season winners and losers, let's take a little quick look at how each of our seasons are going here. 2025 quick review. As the viewers know, it's been a little bit of a rough start for me here in the season. I've climbed back up from the 901,000 I was after Australia. So I said 901,000 to 1,000. That's still the goal. Luke, you're a lot closer than that than me. I'm a little bit jealous here. So talk us through how the first 5 races of the 2025 season.
Well, you know what? I did take some minor damage in Australia. I mean, how could you not with all that chaos? Um, but I think I escaped better than most. I ended up gaining budget there, would you believe? Um, was managed to jump on the Lance Stroll and the Nico Hulkenberg train, rode their price rises all the way into getting off them at Bahrain. I definitely was an early adopter into the Haas assets and played around with the constructor and the drivers pretty much from race week 2 in China. And you know what? I just didn't hit any DNFs until this past weekend in Saudi. And so I've been able to keep things pretty steady.
I can see that 110.4 million budget, over 1,000 points already in the top 10K. You're well on your way to another top 200 finish, my man. I love it. And then we can see down here, no chips used. I've used the wild card because while it sounds like Australia was not as bad for you, it was awful for me. I had to hit the wild card chip immediately in the second race of the season. But so I think you were slightly tempted to use Limitless in Saudi Arabia, but you're maybe like not as like tempted by the chip in Miami or Imola coming up.
Yeah, I was tempted when I first looked at when the F1 Fantasy Tools had updated their budget calculator. We looked at sort of what those price values were looking like for Saudi. For me, it was like, yeah, there was definitely a play for Limitless, and um, but it was that potential budget losses because I was in that meta team from Bahrain, so I had which had the assets like Ocon and doing in that team. And I just couldn't talk myself out of having a limitless team, which had two assets in it that were looking likely to decrease. No matter what the delta looked like, no matter what the gap to the field would look like, I think I probably placed a little bit too much value on potentially a team wanting to gain value in that off week. But lessons learned, and we move forward as we go on. So now it's just really about trying to figure out where do we try to find this delta again. So we're looking at the delta from Saudi, and if you know the limitless delta is probably was about 110 points, at best over a regular team, and over some teams it's a little bit higher depending on if you got unlucky with a few more Alpine assets. So it's really about trying to figure out, can that delta be made up again in 1 week? What type of things need to go your way to be able to make that happen? And so the sprint weekends give us a little bit of insight into that, because we do get the benefit of that sprint qualifying. So you never know. I'll have to keep looking at them quite in depth to see when it might make sense.
Yeah, Saudi was good last year in 2024, and it turned out to be pretty good again in 2025. So that might be something we need to remember heading into the 2026 season. It does seem like the problem about 2026 will be there'll be these new regs. So maybe like the cars can be closer. That could be turn it into more of an overtaking track. The dirty air definitely seems to be a thing in 2025, being the last season of these regs. People are talking about how hard it is to overtake. Like, I think Oscar was saying that he could even feel like when Lando ended up leading the race for a little bit in Saudi Arabia last weekend. I think Oscar came over the radio and he was like 3.2 back and was like, I can kind of feel a little bit of like Lando's dirty air now. So
Oh wow.
that was interesting. I think Fred Vasseur said after the third or fourth race that it might be a qualifying championship, which makes Saturday a lot of fun, but hopefully Sunday will pick it back up as well in Miami. But yeah, so top 10K already, over 1,000 points, 110 budget. You are well on your way, my friend. I'm hoping to catch you up here. The only slight thing I'm going to cling on to is after race 1, I was at 98.2 million in budget. So I have gained 10 million over 4 weeks. So hopefully the budget rising continues. I've got some problems of my own in Miami. I've got Doohan and Gasly there. So unfortunately, it's not going to be any limitless for me. I'm kind of eyeing up Imola right now. I do have 3 free transfers, but enough of that. We'll get into that more like next week when it's content
You
creation
bet.
central, revving it all up with our team selection previews and stuff like that. But yeah, the early season winners and losers, Luke. Who is first on your list?
All right, this one's going to sting a little bit for you, knowing how you were looking at your decisions last week. But we have to talk about Fernando Alonso. Now, Fernando, he was really averaging 7.2 points per race in 2024. And if you look at him this year, I think he's averaging -4. He is like underperforming. It's just a horrid start. 2 DNFs in the 5 races. He had one DNF in all of 2024. So it's one of the steepest fantasy declines I think we've seen. And it's a big but it is Fernando Alonso that we're talking about. Um, a man that's made a career from fighting on the track. He's never going to give up. Um, and there are some signs of stabilizing, in his performances in the last three races. So thanks to a few price drops, he might be getting more appropriately priced as to where his value feels like it should be in the game. So there could be a potential where his value, sort of aligns with his current output. So the first few weeks were a disaster, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Alonso become one of those more sneaky picks as we start looking at things again after this break.
Yeah, I agree. He is a little bit on my radar for Miami as well. I think he only needs like a few points to get even like a good price rise, and it might be the time to kind of get back on Alonso soon, especially if I'm setting myself up for Imola to hit that limitless
Mhm.
button. He is one of the options I'm thinking about. Like right now in my brain, I'm thinking maybe Ocon to Alonso, doing to Bortoleto, and then upgrading Mercedes to Ferrari. That's kind of my three transfer thoughts. But going back to Alonso here, it had, like you were saying, it has looked a little bit better the last three races, 11th, 15th, 11th. So that's pretty good from him for the F1 or F1 side. And hopefully the F1 fantasy points will follow, as we see here in the little note. 0 World Drivers' Championship points in the first 5 races. Lance Stroll is just putting the team on his back.
He
But
has.
we all know that Alonso is just kind of like goal hanging right now for that silver bullet in 2026 with Adrian Newey. He's hoping for like one last ride, Vin Diesel style, Fast and Furious, like just hoping for that third world championship. And I don't want to say that he's like gonna like check out. He's always gonna like compete pretty hard, but it is tough to see him at the back of the field in a little bit of a tractor in the Aston Martin. The team principal came out and said that Adrian Newey is not working on the 2025 car. He's fully focused on the 2026 car. So this just might be what we get with Aston Martin. And there could be some tracks like Alonso has had a pretty good history at Saudi Arabia. So he did okay getting 11th here. He was helped with a time penalty by Liam Lawson, obviously. But while he may be an option for the next few races, I feel like as soon as he rises, he might start falling again. So it might just be like
Yes.
we're on and off of Alonso the entire season. So we just gotta like pick our moments here. I'm gonna do my first faller here. Lewis Hamilton. I'm coming right back at you. You attack my heart with Fernando Alonso after my decision. I'm gonna come right back at you. He's down 4-0 to Leclerc in Grand Prix head-to-heads. Obviously, he won the sprint in China, but everything is just looking a little bit off with Hamilton right now. 6th in points per race, 11th in points per million. The quality average is way down. It's 6 races, 5 Grand Prix into his tenure with Ferrari, but the vibes are a little bit bad. I wonder if we can maybe throw him into the Alonso category of like kind of like waiting for 2026. Hopefully something comes along because it seems like Leclerc is getting a little bit more of a grip with this new car that Ferrari has brought.
Hmm.
But Hamilton is still waiting there. I mean, Leclerc's been there for years. So I 100% get why Leclerc would be ahead of the game compared to Hamilton. But outside of that sprint, it has been a little underwhelming. And as a Hamilton fan, were you hoping for more? Are you like sweeping this under the rug, just being like, it's only 5 races, we're good, like don't worry about it, wait till mid-season? Or so as a Hamilton fan, what are the vibes you're getting from Lewis in 2025?
Oh yeah, certainly. Coming into the season, it was excitement, excitement, excitement. Like Lewis in red, like winning in red. Like what can he show us? Um, but I think we're still seeing. I mean, it's great that we got to see some early season magic with him winning that sprint in China. I think that really was a bit of it was a sprint win, but I think it kind of gets a little bit of a monkey off his back. Kind of gets his first sort of like win in a Ferrari car. Um, but yeah, it's just kind of been a little bit like of a mare road with Lewis, and some of the vibes in his post qualifying interviews or post race, he just doesn't really seem to have much energy behind him, and you're kind of wondering like, is he starting to lose some interest? Is he just that frustrated? Like, what's his issue? Um, He's certainly not handling the car as well as Leclerc is right now, and it seems like Leclerc seems to be on a little bit of a rise here. But Hamilton's almost like he's still qualifying in the top 10. He's still making it into Q3 each time, which is almost from a fantasy perspective, it's almost like hurting him a little bit because I kind of want to see him maybe fall out of Q3. Get a position from 11, 15, and then let's see some Lewis points from overtakes and points positions gained, which actually might help his fantasy value. But if he's going to qualify P8 to P9 and not really have anything of value to attack the cars in front, then he's not really setting himself up for any type of points gain on a particular week.
Yeah, I mean, when he was in that Mercedes the last 3 years, like it's like, oh, I feel like in 2022 when he had a couple of Q1 exits, it was like, oh my goodness, the sky is falling. But then in 2023, 2024, like it happened a couple of times, maybe like more Q2 exits. But on the bright side, it was like, well, it's Hamilton. He's going to be able to overtake these cars ahead. But now with like Verstappen, Russell, Norris, Piastri, all I'm not going to say a better driver than Hamilton, but just like in a better car, better setup, like more comfortable, obviously. It is tough to see Hamilton kind of coming through on a Sunday. We'll get magical moments, I'm sure. Like the Chinese sprint win was pretty cool, but he was on pole. He was leading from the front. It's just interesting. Like we go back to this dirty air. Like if he's uncomfortable in the car, he doesn't really trust himself in it right now. Will he be willing to take these kind of risky overtakes? Like I don't even think he didn't even hunt down like Antonelli on Sunday. That was a little bit concerning for me in
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia. I know it was the dirty air and stuff, but yeah, he's probably looking back over at the Mercedes garage. And he's like, now you guys have a good car.
Yeah,
Like
it's like hang
what's
on a
going on
minute.
right now? So, but yeah, so Lewis Hamilton is my first faller. How about your next faller here, Luke?
All right, so my next faller is we're going to switch it up and we're going to go with a constructor. And I've gone with Red Bull as my number two stock faller in 2025. Now, if you remember from 2024, like they were the premium play, especially at the start of the season.
Set and forget.
Um, exactly. Like ownership was sitting around 30% back then, and understandably so. They were extremely dominant. Max Verstappen was basically printing fantasy points for you. Um, but if you follow the ownership trend through that, you know, through even last season and into this, like they've got a 10% ownership right now, and honestly, it feels about right. Um, they're a team that kind of just shows up on a Friday to race weekends, and it just seems like they're a little bit lost on the Friday. Sometimes setup issues. Max is always complaining about the balance. The long run pace is never there. But then it's like I don't think there's a team on the grid that improves as much as Red Bull do from a Friday to even the Saturday qualifying. Like they seem to just can sync things up way faster than any other team can. All of a sudden, you're just thinking to yourself, wait, did we just all forget about Max and Red Bull again? Because he's there, either on the front row, he's on the second row, you know, and they are there. So still, the fantasy points aren't really there as they were last season. I think we've got a much tighter gap at the top four constructors at this point in 2025 than we did in 2024. Their pit crew this year hasn't taken a single fastest pit stop, which was boosting their value a lot last year. And yeah, who knows what's going on with their team life as well. Obviously, they've made that huge driver decision blunder with swapping out Liam for Yuki after 2 races. So I think that certainly set them back compared to McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes. But yeah, that is, there is still that upside with Max. Yuki's looking better, but it's just a premium price to pay for one guy, really, that's generating points on that team. And sometimes, yeah, the overall package doesn't scream value right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree because like when you have the McLaren construct, like you can almost get away without having like if you had to, like when people didn't have the budget to get to the meta a couple of weeks ago, it was like, well, if I can't get to Piastri, is it even worth it? It's like, well, if you can get to McLaren, you're getting both points of Lando and Oscar like built into your squad. But with Red Bull, it's like Well, just get Max, because that's like really the
Hmm.
only like positive asset. Like if you get Red Bull, you're probably going to be losing points with early season Liam, or at least like now with Sonoda a little bit crashing in Saudi Arabia. And that's what was happening with Checo last year as well. It was like, well, do you want Red Bull? Like Checo's
Yeah.
costing you like double points, whereas Max is just like getting it done. But your point about them improving from Friday to Saturday is like spot on. They are one, like you said, the best team improving from Friday to Saturday, I think. And then especially with Miami coming up, they're gonna have the sprint qualifying, then they'll have the sprint, and then they can still make changes to their car. Like that's what happened in China. Max was kind of like in no man's land for the sprint, and then all of a sudden he's like right up there, like doing like very well all of a sudden, and we're like, oh, we just forgot about Red Bull, and they just can like totally flip the switch. And just a little note, like Christian Horner pictured here, he's kind of strutting his stuff a little bit this week. He's talking about how like he expects the flexi wing change in Spain to be really good for Red Bull. He's talking about how that Saudi Arabia was their most competitive race of the season so far. They were like right on pace with McLaren. So it kind of like perks up my ears a little bit when Christian Horner is like kind of peacocking a little bit around the grid. Like
Yeah.
he he will like big up a competitor when he's like trying to make it look like Red Bull's the underdog. But when he starts talking about that Red Bull's pretty good, like that makes me take notice, because I'm like, uh-oh, like we could be in for something. So while Red Bull is a faller, and I agree with that in the early season, they definitely need to be on our radar over the next 3 or 4 weeks, because that in Spain, that new technical directive is going to come, and it could totally switch up the grid. And for someone like yourself that still has the wild card, that could be very handy when they're heading to Canada. Like if you can see the Spanish Grand Prix results and you're like, oh, Red Bull and Ferrari are crushing it, it's time to flip the switch, activate that wild card in Canada, and you're good to go. And as you can see here along the bottom, 19, 67, 46, 46, 21 points in each race. They don't have a single top two constructor finish in any race this season in F1 Fantasy. So I think it's a great call by you that Red Bull is a faller for F1 Fantasy in 2025. My next faller is Gabriel Bortoleto, because I kind of had high hopes for him. F3 champion, F2 champion in back-to-back years. I know he's in a Sauber. I can hear you guys kind of already typing away, like, how can you like say Bortoletto's a faller when he's in that tractor? But he's the only rookie without a double-digit point finish in F1 Fantasy so far this season. It's just, I know he's he's at the price floor right now, but he's kind of similar to Alonso for me, where like he might gain budget in Miami, but then we might have to get right back off him because he's going to probably fall again in Imola. And there are some great graphics out there explaining how like the future price rises look. I think he might be okay for a great price increase. So that would be 0.6, and then a good price increase in Imola, which would make me bring him in for my limitless chip in Imola, which would be fine. But then you'd have to get off him in Monaco. But 17.8 quality average, 17.8 race average, like he's doing the kind of kick Sauber thing where qualifies 20th, trundles around to the back, hopefully avoids a DNF and gains a couple of positions. But Bortoleto, am I being too harsh here, look, like as my second faller for the early season?
No, I don't think so. I think certainly from I think you're right. Like there was high expectations, but yeah, it's. I think we have to remember that he is in a kick salvo. But I think fantasy is a game of understanding their assets' value as to what they can bring to your team and why you would put them in. And I think the biggest reason why Bortoleto is a lot of teams right now is from a protection of budget. There's certainly some PTSD, some trauma from losing such a lot of budget in Australia, and people have like worked super hard, just like yourself, to kind of get that back. And it just feels like you know what? Can I just protect myself on certain weekends, which are just completely unpredictable? And I think his price point, as is at the floor, it kind of reminds me a little bit of where we had, was it with like Colapinto or Sargent last year with the Williams? And that at
Yeah.
some point, you just need to have like space for the cheapest asset in the game so that you can afford an upgrade, a significant upgrade somewhere else in your team. So, Gabriel Bortoleto, I feel he fits a need on teams at this point in the season where he's the cheapest asset. You don't have to spend a lot of money on him. He's not going to lose you any budget right now. So can you maximize that upside?
Yeah, yep, I agree again. Yeah, you're making great points here, Luke. Happy to have you on the show. Top 200 finisher in the world for a reason, I can see. And yeah, Gabriel, he's kind of like, it's like if you're in a snowstorm and like someone gives you like a very, very poorly made blanket. It's like, I'll take it. I wish it was like a Patagonia, like whatever, good for 30 below kind of jacket thing, but I'll take the blanket in the snowstorm because yeah, Bortoleto, 4.5 million, like doesn't really do anything, but it's a little bit of protection. And like the thing that you're talking about with Sargent and Colapinto last season was like, it just felt like Sargent never had a chance to rise. He was always at the back of the field and they were doing it based on like the entire average of the field. And it was like, how many DNFs do we need for
Yeah.
Logan Sargent to go up in budget ever? And that's what was like limiting to the appeal of him last season. And then Colapinto came in and blew him out of the water and was like a price rising king for like
Yes.
the second half of the season. But Bortoleto, because of the 3-race rolling average, he hasn't had any DNFs. He's not really making too many mistakes these days outside of Australia. I think he had a pretty rough Chinese Grand Prix as well. But he does, like the 3-race rolling average does give us a little bit of a reason for hope that he could rise in Miami. I'm not hoping for much. Like, I just hope that he either doesn't rise in Miami at all, so then I don't have to worry about him in Imola, or like he does well enough in Miami that he just needs to finish in Imola and not lose me any budget there. So we will see how that goes. But yeah, Bordello is my second follow. I think it's mostly because like he was the F2 champion and then Hadjar was the runner up, and there was kind of like a little bit of hype about Bortoleto, and then Hadjar was kind of like, oh, he's like a little bit temperamental, like he could be kind of erratic, like he might crash out and stuff, and he's just taking the like we're going to talk about him,
Yeah.
but not in the faller category later today. And yeah, it's just kind of like I feel like Hadjar has maybe stolen the star away from Bortoleto to begin the 2025 season. But look, let's get into your third faller here.
All right. So the third faller that I've gone for this year is the man, the myth, the smooth operator. That is Carlos Sainz. Um, my man, Carlos Sainz, he is in fantasy free fall right now. He's lost 0.6 million every single race. That's he's dropped 3 million in 5 races. But you know what? He's the third most owned driver in the game. Like, I'm just going to repeat that. He's the third most owned driver in the game. He's sitting at the same ownership level as a McLaren constructor. The only names above him: Ollie Behrman, Isaac Hadjar. That's it.
Rightfully so.
That's the list. Behrman, Hadjar, Sainz. Three top owned constructors in the game. But yeah, he's easy on the ice, I'll admit. So if there's ever a driver who's going to convince you to bench logic for aesthetics, it's going to be Carlos. But at the end of the day, this is a stats game. So if we do look under the hood a little bit more, if we take a look at like the top 500 Patreon group, Sainz's value, his ownership sits at 0.2%, which tells you a lot. The highly engaged, competitive fantasy players out there have mostly moved on from him. They're well aware of the budget bleed and have chosen to avoid the risk. But still has that reputation, dependable experience. We've seen a top 10 finish just most recently in Saudi Arabia. But for his charisma and his experience, that might just be enough for him to be justified as a pick in your casual or friends and family leagues. But right now, his numbers just aren't supporting the love in a more competitive environment. But I think his price has just started too high. I think the F1 fantasy developers just, I don't know, they just kind of had it at a way too high level. But that has caused his price to continue to fall. But with a decent race in Saudi and potentially a good race, a good weekend in Miami, especially if the Williams are kind of continue to push for both drivers to kind of get into this top 10, there could be a bit of a rebound coming for Carlos Sainz in the near future. But I don't think we've seen his true floor yet. I think he still needs quite a few points this weekend to even see a small price increase. So for now, I'm gonna still keep sitting out on Carlos Sainz, but I'll be excited to get him back into the team at some point, especially being a big Williams fan as I am.
Yeah, I agree. I think Carlos, the point you made about the game kind of starting him too high, I think they just wanted to hedge their bets a little bit because it was like, how good is Williams going to be? Because like if they start Signs and Albon, like say they were like 9 or 8 million, and it was like, oh, Williams is like definitely the fifth best constructor. Like that could be like kind of set and forget. So I understand why they put him. I think it was like 13-1 or something like that to begin the season, but it has been an awful fall. But things are starting to look a little bit better. He was promoted to a points finish in China. 14th in Japan was like just didn't work out. Bahrain, he was on for a pretty good finish. Just like that was just unfortunate from him when he competed with Yuki. And then 8th in Saudi Arabia beats Alex Albon on the grid, like just head to head for the first weekend, which was good to see. So I think the rise is coming for Carlos Sainz, but we're probably going to see another fall because I'm looking at Pat's charts from the F1 Fantasy Discord.
Mhm.
Sainz needs 25 points for a 0.2 price rise in Miami. He needs 34 points for a 0.6 rise in Miami. So that's not happening. He needs at least 15 points to avoid another 0.6 billion drop. So depending on how it goes, maybe he can avoid the massive drop of 0.6, but I'm anticipating probably another 0.2 drop because 25 points is still quite a bit for Sainz. Things are looking up. If he keeps falling, but he'll probably keep falling in F1 fantasy, and his kind of chart will go up for
Mhm.
performances. I think we're going to meet a kind of point where he is a good option for us in F1 fantasy. Do you think we'll over the next like we've got Miami and then a triple header? Can you anticipate maybe by the end of the triple header looking at Carlos Sainz? What do you think?
Potentially, I think that's what we're going to want to see, right? We're going to want to see this continued like top 10 contention still be there. It's gonna, that's kind of like the perfect scenario, right? We know that there's going to be some price decreases to happen because those targets that's needed is just way out of the realms of possibility right now. But it's kind of what you want. You want to see an asset decreasing heavily, but their points that they're getting actually increasing until it levels out to a point where you go, actually now, now his value is at a decent rate. His ability to get that, achieve that target of price points per million at 1.2, so that it gives you a lot of confidence and at least some data to back up to say, yes, we know exactly when he's going to want to put up. Kind of like similar how we're seeing where like a Hajar or a Behrman, like you kind of see like they are their price point versus the price value versus the points that they're getting is certainly matching up and syncing out. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe in 3 more races of Signs, and I think he could be someone to look for.
Yep, yep. And so this is actually leading us into a perfect segue into I didn't do a third follow because you had a bonus follower. So I want to get into that here. So let us know, what is the fourth follower you had here?
Yeah, this is a little bit on kind of taking a look into the strategy of the game, and especially with some of the changes that's happened with the 3 race rolling average. But I'm definitely feeling that there's a lack of point scoring opportunities for the B tier drivers. We all know that everyone has a DNF risk in them. Looking at some of our but DNFs are fine, and we also know like -20 is just quite harsh. But for a -20 for like say one of the A tiers like Verstappen, Norris, or Piastri, if they lose -20, they can get that back quite quickly in the next race. But for a B tier asset, um, it could take them at least 3, 4, if not 5 races to actually score 20 points on merit on themselves. So it just really feels incredibly punishing for for our B tiers whenever that happens. And certainly from a fantasy perspective, then you're forced to make a transfer very quickly, because there's just no chance of that ever coming back within that three race rolling average. So
yeah, as you can see, I mean, as you can see on the chart here, like it's the entire A tier is up at the top, and then the B tier here is like kind of struggling for points here. You get one DNF, you got like Alonso's had 2 DNFs at the start of the season. He's still recovering from that. Sainz is obviously still recovering from Australia, looking a little bit better recently, but then had like that ill-timed Bahrain DNF. Like he could have been an option a little bit sooner here. And like Hadjar has finally recovered. Doohan is still struggling. I mean, I'm not sure how long he is for the F1 grid, but yeah, like you're saying, like the B tier guys, we need to bring some points back. Some of the theories I've had, or some of the thoughts I've had, are like, and I think you're going to talk about this in a little bit, like we don't have to be as structured as real F1. Like we can do points from first to 15th or first to 20th. If we have, like, we can go 2019 8, like all the way down. Like we can make this up. There's there's other games out there like Grid Rivals. Like their point system is bonanza. Like there's points all like left, right, and center over there. And we don't have to go like that crazy with the official F1 fantasy game, but there are things that we can learn. We can bring back. This is before your time, Luke, but there used to be beat teammate points, which they actually have in
I think that's a great
DFS
idea.
scoring. So yeah, like Albon versus Sainz, it would be like, okay, like I'm going to take Sainz. I think he's going to beat them this weekend. So those are some things that they could reintroduce to the game. They do need to reduce this DNF penalty, especially in like a sprint race, like in Miami. Like you could be looking at like a -40 score if your driver DNFs twice, and it's
Pain.
just like
Absolute
absolutely
pain.
brutal. So, what kind of hints are you thinking about, or what tips would you give the developers for 2026 and beyond when it comes to maybe improving B tier scoring? You got any ideas off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think they're sort of very similar. I kind of like was engaging on X a couple of weeks ago, just seeing where people's interests and appetites were, and I think the beating a teammate is certainly I think that's just a really fun one. I think that adds a really competitive edge to it. And maybe there's, like you would say, if you complete sort of a third of the race or 2/3 of the race, there should be some sort of bonus points for that. And yeah, I like I like the idea of awarding more, especially in qualifying. For drivers to be getting the points for getting out of the Q1 and Q2, 3. Like right now, those points are just tied to constructors. So yeah, I mean, I don't have all the answers. I definitely think we have some great minds in the community, and I'm sure we'd love to hear some of your comments and ideas as well. But yeah, I think it would certainly encourage more diverse builds. It will give us more assets to choose from. We may not get as many like meta team dominations, and ultimately, it's a fantasy game, so we should get some more excitement into the mix.
Hey everyone, because I had so much fun talking to Luke, I actually have to split this interview up into 2 parts. So the first part will be the fallers, you just watched that, and the next part will be coming out in a couple of days. That'll be the risers. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to Luke's YouTube channel as well. But yeah, in a couple of days, I'll get that risers video edited and we will pick up the second half of this interview. But hopefully you enjoyed it. Leave comments below. And yeah, once again, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.